Welcome to the Nuff Said Podcast, episode 21, the recap episode. Jack, see what I did there?
Ooh, very nice, the captain reference.
Thank you. You know, it's so good I had to really emphasize it and point it out. Hey, I am recapulating Rob Southgate.
And I am...
I think I said it wrong. And you are...
And I am jubilant Jack Wengroski. Jubilant because I have seen the movie and I was very much pleased.
Yeah. Well, I was going with recapitulating Rob Southgate. See, I did screw it up. It's so hard to say, but it's briefly summarizing, which is exactly what we're going to do about Captain America Winter Soldier. So, first of all, let's say this up front. If you're listening to this, you're probably aware of it already, but we are going to spoil the heck out of this movie. You don't talk about the movie and dance around it, especially with something like this. Am I right?
That's right. You don't go to the Marvel podcast that's talking about the movie and not expect to hear about it. So,
right. So if you haven't seen the movie, turn it off, run and see the movie, come back, listen to this, and then see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the new one, the one that takes place immediately after the movie, and then listen to that podcast, which we are going to be doing tonight as well.
Exactly.
So, Jack, I want to start things a little bit differently than we normally do.
Okay.
I am going to read the summary from IMDb of Captain America Winter Soldier, and then we'll jump in.
Sounds good.
So here we go. Steve Rogers struggles to embrace his role in the modern world and battles a new threat from old history, the Soviet agent known as the Winter Soldier. Boy, they're pretty brief with that whole description there. I thought they'd go into a little bit more of a summary. I guess that wraps it up. So, Jack,
that's the entire summary.
That's it. That's
like the minimalist. That's like the absolute no spoiler summary of the movie.
There's nothing there.
Hey, you know what this movie is about? It's about Captain America and the other guy from the Soviet Union.
Yeah, and a guy named, they spoiled that. It's the Winter Soldier. Now we know he's from the Soviet Union. Amazing.
If I had read that.
A little nugget there from old history. That's in there too. It's just a little nugget.
Old history. Yeah, if I had heard that entire thing, I would have never had to go see the movie.
Right. Movie spoiled.
Yeah.
So, Jack, you already said you were jubilant about it. Lay it on me. What are your thoughts? Let's throw them out on the table first before we start talking about the scenes and everything.
Okay, well, I will do the prequel because we've been talking about the Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I've been going over and over and over about, you know what? The biggest enemy lately has been the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. themselves. The
right.
Organization has some definite problems. These guys are attacking each other more than they're doing anything else. And this movie is really, we were supposed to see that. This wasn't a surprise. This was, hey, look, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is dirty and has been infiltrated. And, so I'm...
Jack, you were right, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was
right.
And it was their total plan the entire time. I thought, it was just bad writing. No, it's like been the long range plan. And they're, anybody listening to this that's been involved in that says, hey, you big dummy, this is not an accident.
Yeah, right. Well, it's funny because I was thinking about the same thing. And I know that now they had to have this plan from the beginning because they knew what the script was. Joss Whedon's overseeing all of this, so that it was leading towards this. The only problem is I think that it may have lost people early because it took a while to get to some of the meat. Like maybe if they hadn't pussyfooted around with it as much, they could have gotten into a little bit more of the hero of the week thing in the beginning and then Captain America. So before we get into S.H.I.E.L.D., we're going to do that on part 2 of this podcast. Let's talk specifically about Captain America. So you were right. S.H.I.E.L.D. is corrupt. Man, it hit like a ton of bricks from the word go.
Oh, yeah. This whole thing.
They flipped this over, in the first 5 minutes?
Oh, yeah. The Hydra infestation just exploded. Fury is locked out of his own system.
Yeah, no kidding.
On whose authority? Nicholas J.
We've
Fury.
talked about this. we've talked about this. Okay, so he's level 10, and we've said there's got to be somebody higher. I was actually kind of getting the impression from this that there isn't somebody higher than Nick. Like Robert Redford's character, I think might be equal or might be part of like I don't know if he'd even be considered a level, but there is somebody pulling the strings that is able to lock Fury out of his own system.
Well, but here's my train of thought. If when Nick Fury said on whose authority, the computer came back on the authority of Nicholas J. Fury, which means there isn't a level higher. Now there was the oversight committee, which I guess that like that the American,
so he has to answer to this committee somewhat, but at the same time he is the top dog, like the president would be.
Right. It's like 0 to 10 or 1 to 10. And, it's not like the guitar amp that goes up to level 11.
But I think maybe it does. Maybe we found out it does.
Well, I think it stops
Hydra
at level.
Might be at 10 or it might be at 11.
Hydra, I think, is their own system. In the old comics.
Well, of course it is. Right.
Well, yes, it is. But the system that what they lock into is from their perspective, at least represented in the movie, that they feel like they're parallel to SHIELD, that their mission is to do the same thing, only by taking away the freedoms that Americans enjoy, and by taking away the freedom that really kind of how Nazi Germany operated.
There were definite allusions to Nazi Germany in this. I absolutely saw that.
Oh yeah, even down to the World War II, because you had to know they were kind of going. Besides the history of SHIELD, and you've got Captain America, who is really rooted in that Nazi war era, with the fighting the World War II, and it really ties him back in. At the same time, there's this whole Cold War theme going on.
Right.
But to kind of finish this out, they have a parallel system. Only, when you cut off one, two takes its place. They have instead of a rank system, it's more like a parallel, even more compartmentalized than SHIELD. SHIELD complains, and the Cap was complaining about the compartmentalization all the time. However, that's what makes Hydra thrive. And
right.
But they really do. They really think that they're doing the good work because people are stupid and they need their freedom to be taken away to be safe. And so, I'm sure that there's their level 1 through 10. Only, there's like 1A, 1B, and 2A and 2B, and the arms don't necessarily know what the legs and the heads are doing.
Right.
So, but how long have we been really waiting for the emergence of Hydra between all the Marvel things that have been going on?
Well, you and I have been talking about this for how long?
Weeks and weeks.
Almost every conversation we bring up Hydra, we bring up AIM, we bring up, Centipede, all these different things. And Hydra is such a huge part of this story. In the movies, you were expecting it. On SHIELD, it was like you're going, why isn't this getting put in the forefront? Well, you know what? Because of this movie, it is at the forefront, baby. It is.
Well, the TV, and we'll get to this later, but the TV series, there's been so much infighting that we completely forgot about Hydra. But it really, it's that people have been talking about this, that the TV series is really almost, I don't want to say an advertisement, but it really is that vehicle to kind of advertise, put forth, give a direction towards the movies.
Well, what's interesting? I was talking to somebody who asked me if they could see Captain America even though they don't watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So it's interesting that the show is starting to make people wonder about that. Whereas before it was like, well, I don't really, I like the movies, or I haven't seen the movies. Is it okay to watch the show? It's kind of flipping. Like, people are finding that they're seeing that the show is important to the story. I think that they're doing a really nice job of leading you on into the movie. The movie was its own entity. No, you don't need to see the show to enjoy the movie, but man, it made it very meta. It fleshed out what was going on there. I'll give you a couple of examples. First of all, the biggest one, Agent Sitwell. You know, the last episode we talked about how Agent Sitwell says, I got to go catch a boat. What do we see? First thing, Agent Sitwell on a boat, and he's there because he's Hydra. It was like, holy moly. And all of a sudden, things from the show are kind of making a little bit of sense.
Okay.
I still say that he was Hydra, but not all of them are. And now we have not, I want to say something else. Jack, you and I have not watched this new episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. yet.
No,
so
and
things we say here may be proved completely wrong 1 hour from now.
Well, that's the thing why I think we both really wanted to record this first, because this is the way everybody else is going to experience this.
Right.
And so
I think it makes it more fun too, because we're going to throw theories out that are going to get destroyed an hour from now, I have a feeling.
Right. Well, and I think we've been talking a little bit over the kind of the airwaves on our off time about Agent Sitwell. So for our listeners, what we were talking previously was, what I said was, are we really buying that Sitwell is a true Hydra agent? You've got the history of Sitwell going back to like to the very first comics. Are you really telling me
but you got to drop the comic thing. The comics are its own entity. This is a reimagining. And I go by the cinematic universe. I told you on the last episode that I went back and I watched the Marvel one-shots, and that very first one has Coulson and Sitwell sitting there having coffee. And when I look at those, this movie made me look at those in a different light. I can believe Sitwell was Hydra. Now, if you go by the character in the comics, no way. No way do I buy it.
Well, and I hear what you're saying.
Going back to the early comics. I'm going, you know what? When I'm reading these Marvel Now comics and Sitwell shows up, I can believe it. Well, I would not believe if Maria Hill was. No way. Maria Hill, not Hydra. Coulson, not Hydra. Well, I don't even think May is. I think that that's going to be proven still, that she is not Hydra, that she was S.H.I.E.L.D. through and through, and she was trying to do the right thing, which she interpreted to be the right thing.
Well, yeah, we talked about this last time. May, I think, was vindicated because they knew her psych profile, that she would protect S.H.I.E.L.D. above her loyalty to Coulson.
Anything else, yep.
So what they did is they set up a scenario to make her kind of the in-house spy, thinking that she was helping, which is the same thing what they set up to Agent Ward.
Right.
And
we're bleeding into S.H.I.E.L.D. again.
We are. Well, how can you not? Because they're intertwining everything. But
they are.
But let me get back to Sitwell, because I have a much.
Sitwell, then I want to focus on the movie in a big way.
So here's my theory. I'm not buying full on that Sitwell is an agent of Hydra, only because a couple things, that Fury actually was the one that sent Sitwell to the ship. So Fury had, he wanted to get intel. He wanted to set up certain things and kind of flush out some of the issues that he already knew about, and until the whole security breach on Insight popped up. And the other thing is, I really think that even though Sitwell is proving really already to be a little different character than the original comics, that when you focus in on it, I really think he's the kind of guy where if you can get him as a double agent, they're really gonna think of him as their most valuable pick, the number 2 guy.
Oh yeah, he's a huge pick.
So really,
I said pick, right?
Right. Well, if he is Hydra, then we can call him the other thing. But
right, hey, it's a family show, Jack. Cut it out.
So, and I think it kind of it paints us in a corner, because really all we
Jack,
gotta do.
nobody paints baby in a corner. I gotta get it out. I'm sorry.
You should have said it in the voice, and we could have had Barry in on this episode too.
Right. Okay, so sorry. I interrupted again.
Well,
so we've been painted into a corner.
So yeah, I think if he's full on, the story with Sitwell really kind of ends there.
Well, but Jack, it does, because he got thrown across a median and hit by a truck. He's dead, and they're not going to Tahiti, Agent Sitwell.
Well, that's true.
Sitwell's way dead. So any debate about how shieldy or how Hydra-y he is, I just coined a phrase, #Hydra-y. Yeah, like anyone's going to use that, right? Except you and I. But it doesn't matter at this point because he is way dead. And I think that they did have him completely flip. We saw Senator Stern is Hydra, no question. We saw Robert Redford, man, Alexander Pierce, Hydra.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was amazing. You know, Captain America, obviously, his radar, his Cappy sense was going crazy. Another phrase I just coined. And he knew what was up. And it's probably, from what you said, it's probably because of his dealings with the Nazis and knowing what this is. And when the apple is spoiled, he knew it. Nick Fury. Now, I've been reading funny things online where people are debating about Nick Fury and saying, well, he didn't know. He got taken. Bull. I think that he knew that there was a problem. That's why he was doing all these moves. That's why he put Coulson and his team on that plane. I think Fury was definitely aware of Hydra, but man, when Hydra's in there, he knows full well you cut one head off, another two grow. He had to figure out how is this going to play out. All he could do was safeguard himself for when it did play out, and man, it did.
It did, and so you've got a huge tie-in, but what happens when, getting back to the show just for a second, as it relates to the
spoiler,
as it relates to the movie, is because Sitwell came back and said, okay, well, Nick Fury's back off the grid, because during last week's episode, Fury was in the middle of the movie, and nobody can find him. He's off the grid. He came back and didn't say, "Oh, he's not dead." Nobody
implied that he was dead. They just said he was off the grid, and nobody knew what was going on.
Right, but at some point, I could have sworn he said, "You know what? He's back on the grid."
So, yeah, I got to tell you, I do think you might be right. I can't remember exactly, but I do think that he may have said something about how he's back on the grid. But even so, when Nick Fury was off the grid for those few weeks, it was because he was preparing for what happened here. I think that he was thinking he could get those helicarriers up in the air before things went south, and I don't think he knew that that's what was going to happen. That's why he was surprised when he was locked out of his program. But he knew Hydra was in there. He knew there was a problem. That might be why he was putting people where he was putting them.
Well, I think he
I'll
knew
tell you one thing he didn't know about. He didn't know about Dr. Arnim Zola down in that basement living through a computer. What was that?
Oh, yeah.
That was awesome.
And yeah, it's like all this old technology, and
that was the greatest.
He's deposited his brain into like all these old like tape reel computers.
Oh, it was amazing. And the face, that weird video face, it looked kind of like the face in the original Tron.
Yeah,
it's like, this is awesome. And then when Captain America punches the screen, it just moves to another screen.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I'm living in these computers. That was so great.
Of course, here's the irony, is this guy's been living in these computers for a good 50, 60 years and nuked himself by calling in a strike on himself. So we meet the guy who saved himself.
You know what? If he's living in there in those computers, that doesn't mean that he doesn't have a backup somewhere.
Oh, that is true. We could see him at some point.
I would not be surprised if we see Zola appear again, and this time maybe he's got a more modern look, or maybe he's on the original Mac. Remember the Mac with that little tiny screen? Hey, I upgraded.
what was that old 80s video with the what was the hammer
You and I in a college jazz band?
no,
You
no,
mean
no. That was
MC Hammer?
not the MC Hammer. It was a song in the video had the little cartoon character on the video. Oh
Okay.
shoot!
Keep telling me, Jack. And there was a hammer?
It was a what was the guy?
Peter Gabriel when he did
Peter.
So? And the hammer
No,
hit the thing and all the fruit went everywhere?
no, no,
Are
no.
you
It
talking
was
Pink Floyd The Wall when they had the hammers walking?
no, no, no. Oh
Okay.
shoot!
Is it MC Hammer? Is it hammer time?
No, it's
I'm
I can't.
confused.
Yeah, it's so much editing for this, but I think he's gonna come back as like an '80s video character.
That was your point.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember I couldn't remember it was a
Wait, I think I got it, Jack. You're not talking about a hammer or anything. You're talking about Max Headroom.
that's it. I knew there was an H in there somewhere. Max Headroom. Yes.
Oh,
I can't believe. You know what's even worse is
oh, please let that be real.
I can't believe you actually got to there from what I was saying.
I can't. I told you I've got an English to Jack to English dictionary. I had to leaf through it, and I figured it out.
You did. You get the captain's prize.
That was awesome. Okay, I got other characters I want to talk about. So let's
So
just
much
roll
for
through
being
them.
concise.
Let's just roll through them. Well, we want to hurry up and get this episode done so we can get into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because there's just so much to talk out. Nick Fury, quick recap of him. Recap. He dies, and he's not dead, and he's beat up, and we see him at his grave, and it's got his quote from when Sam Jackson was in Pulp Fiction on the gravestone. Did you catch that?
I did not.
The path of the righteous man. Ezekiel. I'm like, oh, it's right out of Pulp Fiction. It's so great.
Awesome.
Yeah, Sam Jackson was fantastic in this movie. Now, I had predicted he was going to die, but I also predicted he was going to die and that they'd do a Tahiti on him and bring him back at a future date. But here, no, they brought him back, basically. They did that trick from that James Bond movie where they did the thing that slowed down his heart.
Right. So
that was really, really cool. Well played. And how about that scene when he gets attacked in his Hummer, and they keep hitting it, and it keeps counting down the damage, and then he pulls that gun out and ba 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 ba. That was so fantastic. I was at the edge of my seat through that whole thing.
And of course, that was a great scene. And of course, to cap it with the Winter Soldier just throwing a little frisbee underneath that blows it up. And
we're not to him yet. Oh, I can't wait to get there. So Black Widow in this, what were your thoughts? Keep them clean, Jack.
Oh, geez. I mean,
how about Cap saying, "Yeah, I bet you look pretty awful in a bikini." I thought about that for the next 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, I don't think that scar would negate anything of the sort. No. I did have visually, she was amazing. I thought the acting was spot on.
Yeah.
I thought everything about it. The only thing I really kind of had a little issue was, this is a Russian agent that grew up in the USSR with absolutely no real, other than that angular face, that no other Russian accent or attributes. But that wasn't a big bother. I thought she was spot on.
Well, she's always been that though, and she's been out of that for so long and been so many different people that I think that she actually wouldn't have much of a Russian accent. I wouldn't think she'd have any at all, actually.
I don't know. I would imagine that
she's multilingual. We saw that in the Avengers. They do give her that look, but even in the comics, I never pictured her having a Russian accent. I always pictured her having a very straight, clean American accent, I guess you'd say.
I guess if you're undercover, like I say, it's acceptable because you could say, she would have been trained not to have any specific accent in any language that she's talking.
Right. Now, one thing that in Avengers, I remember I was disappointed by, because I think the Black Widow's awesome. They didn't show her use her bracelets. This time, man, right out of the box, she used those bracelets. You saw them fire off. They need to do more Black Widow. I loved That character. I'm verklempt. I'm so excited. Uh, I love that. And I actually want to point out a little thing. I read this on another site where they were talking about, spoilers and Easter eggs that are in the movie. There's a point when she fires something off or she gets hit with something and she says, "Man, those things sting." And they said that is very likely a reference to the Wasp because the Wasp uses whatever is in those stingers to do her stinging. So when she said that, it's like you're probably going to find out that technology is what leads to the Wasp, which is just a great little nugget. If it's not true, make it true because I loved it.
And I really think they could have used those a little more with the Winter Soldier. That was very effective on the arm.
Oh, yeah.
Boom! It was spot on. It was just like a little momentary, but it was enough to create a big opening and to get away.
Oh yeah,
and
to use do more with it though,
and to use it towards the end to send an EMP to disable that little name tag. Yes. Oh, that was awesome.
And I'll tell you another thing. With this movie, this is why I think Black Widow was so vital to this movie. I think if it had focused solely on Captain America, it wouldn't have been, the stakes wouldn't have been as high. She just made the movie for me. And I'm telling you, Chris Evans was fantastic. His acting in this was great. Captain America just ruled. Like when everyone's like, "Oh, Iron Man, Iron Man, Iron Man," I think Captain America might have just stolen some Iron Man thunder with this because it was just so great. And Chris Evans was great, but Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow, man, she was a killer. And I think that chemistry, that character was so great. I want to see more. And in fact, I walked out of there. We were with some friends. I actually went with some listeners too. And when we walked out, one of the people I was with, first thing she says, Jocelyn says, they need to do Black Widow Hawkeye movie soon. While you got Scarlett Johansson, make that movie. And I'm so with her on that idea.
Yeah, that would be really good. There's
so many. Imagine having a Hawkeye Black Widow movie that's just as big and noisy and awesome as this Captain America movie. They could print money again.
They could, there's so many opportunities to do, things right now. The door is really open for multiple things.
Oh, yeah. Well, they said they have a map to 2028. Now, will they get there? I think they will, but it's a dream board they've got. But one of the things I thought was interesting that was recently said, Kevin Feige said that they're trying to get to a point, or they foresee a point where they're not just doing 2 Marvel movies a year, but they could do as many as 4. Can you imagine every 3 months another Marvel movie? That's when you get to a point where you can get a Black Widow Hawkeye movie, and it doesn't seem like, oh man, did I have to I gave up a new Captain America for that. Now it's like, hey, who cares? Hit one of the big 3 every year, hit a Captain America or hit an Iron Man every year or Thor, and then you've got 3 other slots you can fill with Black Widow and Hawkeye. Do a Nick Fury movie that focuses on Nick Fury's rise. Take it back to the 70s Nick Fury. Man, I would be so down with that. I can't even tell you. Take my money. So we also met Agent 13 in this one. Emily Van Camp played her. This is interesting because now they didn't define this in here, but in the comics, she is related to Peggy Carter, who was Cap's girlfriend before he died in the past.
Right.
So, in the comics, they had her be her younger sister or something, and then they changed it so that when they reimagined it, that she was like a great niece or something, which would explain why she'd be the age she is. But I thought they were introducing this character. They made her important without giving us too much. Like the average person might see it and think, oh, well, this is an agent that's got a stake in it. But she's an important character that could grow into a big part, just like Maria Hill. Maria Hill, I thought they played her really well too. They didn't use her a lot, but she seemed way important in this movie, didn't she?
Well, she did. Don't forget, like her real big rise I think is still up and coming. She was kind of in the back. She's been in the background a little bit, but this really kind of took her to the next level, which, since her TV series is kind of done now, I think it opens the door. And so I think Marvel has opened the door to let her through it.
Yeah, I think so too.
She couldn't, with really, How I Met Your Mother done, is really kind of enabled that character to grow.
So let's talk. We've got two more key players that I want to talk about. Well, three. Let's talk real quick. Alexander Pierce, really important. I loved that Robert Redford was in this. I could watch Robert Redford all day.
Oh, absolutely.
I thought he was excellent in it. You know, it's been a while since you've seen him in something like a big Hollywood movie. He does a lot of indie stuff and smaller stuff, even though he was, like arguably one of the biggest stars of all time. Him in this role, it wasn't about, hey, let's trot out the old star and see what happens. It was about, let's get an amazing actor that everyone's going to be really happy to see and let him be a bad guy. He was a great bad guy. And it was tough to watch a hero like him. I mean, if this movie had been made 30 years ago, he would have been Captain America without question.
I think it did, making him the bad guy, some bells really rang off even in his opening scenes where like Fury comes in. We really don't know. It's like, okay, something was off, but man,
something was off. Yeah. It was. Something was off, but that was before we knew what was off, and it was just, man, it was played so well.
I think, and I'm looking at Robert Redford's kind of his list of movies here, and
oh gosh,
and it goes, geez, it's like huge between the documentaries, producers, but really, if you go back to this kind of character, I think Bagger Vance is really like the last time.
Vance, really? You're going to bring that one up?
Yeah, I mean, to where, because I think that the type of strong character in that role. Let's see.
Yeah, you know what? I'll take him any day. And if it was 30 years ago, he would have been Cap. Paul Newman would have been Agent Coulson. I don't know who they would have gotten for the Winter Soldier, but it probably would have been somebody like, back then it would have been like, they cast, Steve Martin or somebody. It would be like, shoot. But he would have been Captain America without question. So seeing him on there, I was getting those feelings like, wow, it makes sense that he's high up and that this is happening. And for him to flip, awesome.
I would have I would have put Paul Newman as Cap. I would have put Robert Redford as Nick Fury, and
that would have been great.
And Mr. Potter would have been
Mr. Potter
would be Alexander Price.
Mr. Potter, get on out of here, Captain America. You and your family. I'm doing a terrible Mr. Potter.
You're a scurvy little spider, Alexander Pierce.
Oh no, the bad impressions have started. Okay, so we still got our two characters I want to get to. Oh, and I want to mention Haley Atwell was in it as Peggy Carter. Give us the Peggy Carter series. I'm ready for it. Oh, and Stanley was a Smithsonian guard. Awesome. Very funny in it too.
It was much more natural. Where was he on the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Appearance? Where was
Yeah.
Of course,
where was that performance? Right.
I mean, it wasn't great, but it wasn't stiff.
No, but it was funny. It was good, and everybody liked it in the show we saw. Everybody laughed and was clapping when he came out. Okay,
I am
next
so
character,
fired. Yes.
Sam Wilson. Man, when I was a kid, I loved the Falcon. I thought it was a cool character. He could fly. He was pretty sweet. Man, I liked this take on the Falcon.
I did, and
I also think that it's still the door is still open for him to get injured, for Captain America to give him his blood to save him, and he gets the serum and he becomes more of a hero, like a superhero, as he is supposed to be. Because every time he took a spill, I was like, man, he's not a superhero. He's gonna break.
Yeah, well, absolutely. You know what he said in the beginning, and they may kind of keep it if he kind of stays as like a sidekick or a minor character, they may kind of leave it at that. He says, I do what he does, only slower. And you almost kind of forget that he's just a regular human. I mean,
because of those wings, but I'm telling you, there were so many points when I really did think he's going to break. Cap doesn't break. He's going to break.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed when he didn't win the fight off the with the double agent for Hydra that was
yeah. You were
Frank
disappointed by that? Yeah,
Rumlow.
actually, I was too.
Yeah, I wanted him
Not
to
in the scene or anything, but I wanted him to kick his butt.
exactly. Yeah, I felt like I got Worfed again from Star Trek.
Warped. Jack. Oh, Jack, you've been warped. Okay.
Oh,
Last big character. Okay, go ahead. What were you going to say?
okay. Before I forget, the list of that Cap had for things to experience. Did you see
Star
some of
Wars.
them? Star Wars, Star
Wars.
Trek.
Yeah, it was
The
Star Wars / Trek.
Rocky. He added Trouble Man from
Right. The
you
one
know,
that he was listening to at the Marvin Gaye, right? The one he
right.
was listening to at the end.
And so but that's all I caught. There were like a whole bunch of others I want to
Yeah, we're gonna
see
have
that
to see
again.
if we can find that and we can post it on our page because that was a pretty cool list. But all I remembered 100% was Star Wars / Trek. I thought that stuck out to me right away.
Yeah, and
I wonder why.
and I was kind of thinking of of all like the Star Wars fans and Trekkies, I don't know that how many of them would appreciate them being lumped together. I
You know
think
what? Disney owns Star Wars now, so I don't think Disney cares.
no, they're like banking seriously. I mean,
Right.
they're having a field day with. I mean, this
Oh
is
my
like
gosh!
this is
And
the
hype
Marvel.
around Star Wars. Forget about it.
This is the Marvel like era, and Disney is plugged into like this whole exploding scenario.
Plus, they have Pixar. Come on, oh, it's crazy. You know what? I really wish they would decide to buy Southgate Media Group because I think this is the piece of the puzzle that Disney is missing.
I think you're right. I think that we could really add to the whole Disney empire.
You know how fast we'd be fired? We have bought Southgate Media Group for $40. They accepted it gratefully, and we fired everybody.
Playing the part of Jack Wygroski will be Ben Stiller, and playing the part of Rob Southgate will be Jim Carrey.
Is Rich Little. Oh!
Hey, everybody.
Playing the part of Rich Little is actually Rich Little instead of those two idiots.
Yeah, instead of Barry, they actually get Rich.
Yeah, Barry and Rich and Gary. Remember, we added another one. Okay, we got one more character, and then we got to wrap this one up because we're going to go late into the night. Bucky Barnes, Winter Soldier. Sebastian Stan playing the Winter Soldier. Give me just first impression. What did you think of this character?
Well, I thought it was great. I thought, the first thing I thought of when I saw the Red Star really wasn't wasn't the Russia connection that it should have been. My first thought was this had to come out of the same program that Cap did. It was too much.
It was a direct star. If somebody put a thing up where they took half the picture of his arm and half the picture of the shield, and
right.
The stars are linked up, and it's an awesome picture. But that is absolutely what they were trying to do.
Yeah, and so you see that link, and it made you think, okay, what's going on here? His demeanor was great. We really see he's a really flawed character. They keep wiping his memory. Alexander Pierce keeps telling him, he's fighting the good fight. Of course, what we know for real is he's part of the enemy, but he never knows that. His personality would have never allowed that, which, we've already seen at the end of the movie where they're going to take this. He is going to really look at his history, where this is going.
Well, in the comics, big spoiler, Steve Rogers dies.
Really?
And the Winter Soldier becomes the new captain.
Really?
Yes. And here's the other thing. Steve Rogers, Chris Evans is only signed for 2 more movies or 3 more movies?
Yeah.
And Bucky is signed for a total of 9. He's only done 2 now.
Right.
So they could be very well planning that after, I'm thinking Avengers 3, Cap dies in Avengers 3, and then we get a couple of Captain America movies with Bucky as the Winter Soldier or as Captain America.
I don't know if I really buy into that. I mean, I'm sure, you take what you can
Jack,
get.
I'm already bought in. Take my money.
I just don't see that. I don't know. I don't see that personality. He's already been wiped. I don't know. It's, to me,
Yeah, but
You know,
he's going to be a new person going forward.
yeah, I'm sure. And that they're really going really somewhere with this because, the first thing that Johansson's Natasha says, she gives him the info on the Winter Soldier and said, I got this from, friends back in Russia, pulled some strings. But once you start pulling that thread, I would be
Yeah,
very
yeah.
careful. Be very
Yep.
careful. You may not want to pull on that,
Yep.
which, that's, if you've studied literature or, at any level, of course, that's foreshadowing, and, that could lead to his demise, which leads, the vacuum for the Winter Soldier because, now, his battles are done. He's looking for redemption, and he's going to be looking for, his old character, his old brain, really is that same type of character.
Right. Very much so.
I mean, my
How great was the
personal
flashback when you saw Cap as that wimpy little Cap, and you saw Bucky as like towering over him? That was great.
right. And I really kind of see that whole era as kind of, I don't want to say revisionist, but I mean they were killing everybody.
Right.
Batman was becoming a 60-year-old man with wrinkles and hernia problems. Superman got killed off. How many other characters went through that whole
Over on the DC side of things, yes.
yeah,
But no, they've done this. They've redone it and changed it. They did the Marvel Ultimate series. They did Civil War. I mean, they've gone through a number of these different things. Once again, I think that we're going to see a Civil War storyline at some point in the future. If they're looking to 2028 for movies, I think by the time we get a few more of these other characters fleshed out, they could do a Civil War, and that would be amazing.
it would.
But I digress. You know what? I thought of another thing. So we get to the end of the movie, and the whole thing was great. Shield is no more, basically. Okay? Torn apart.
That's what we're led to believe.
Right. Well, it's got to be completely like burned to the ground and restructured now, and that leaves our heroes on Agents of Shield flying into what? We don't know.
Well, yeah,
but
they've been hijacked.
What we did see Baron Wolfgang von Strucker in that ending credit. So we've got a big bad Hydra guy out there. We also saw the beginnings of Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch.
Right.
And I was actually surprised. I didn't know they were in that final bit. I knew that Von Strucker was, but I didn't know that the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were in this movie. So that was a real pleasant surprise. And the images I've seen of him in particular, I haven't been that impressed. She looks awesome, but I was like, I'm not sure. But in that little bit, completely changed my mind. I thought they both looked awesome. I am on board for Avengers 3 now. Bring it.
Okay, well, we're getting towards the end. Can we go all the way back to the beginning for just a second?
Yeah, Jack, do it.
Let's go back to the 20. Okay, you know what the 20 is when you go see the movie, all the previews coming up.
Right.
Now, I really hadn't seen I had kind of gotten away from the Amazing Spider-Man, but I actually happened to see the previous one, and
okay.
Just maybe a week or two ago, and I all of a sudden it was like my Spidey sense kind of came back, and
you're ready to watch it.
I'm ready to
watch.
I
thought that preview was awesome,
man. Oh my god! It's like the new Spider-Man. I thought I really didn't want to like him. I mean, it's like it's okay. Yeah. It's like starting over. He's a pimply kid. He's not even up to
a lot of people don't like it, and I don't get it. I thought it was a cool movie, and I am so on board for Spider-Man 2.
But that's the thing. When I first got by the time I got to the end of the movie, man, I really liked it. And when I saw this preview, and then the Rhino came out, and
I know. Now he's only in it for like 4 minutes, so don't get too hyped about the Rhino. But just seeing him is going to be awesome.
Oh man, but the scene, where he's kind of webbed a grate, a sewer grate, and he's spinning that thing around, and it gets right up to like a millisecond before.
Oh yeah, that looks awesome.
Yeah, and I imagine the Rhino's kind of more like a cyborg or just a plain robot kind of thing. But man, it's like the whole thing went. Not only is this new Spider-Man, not only am I on board, but man, I'm like actually excited.
Yeah, me too.
And
me too.
Yeah,
I think it was great. That
Guardians of the Galaxy
Past. Oh wait, you're gonna do that one. That Guardians of the Galaxy preview on the big screen was amazing.
Oh man, yeah.
I mean, I was like ready to go. I can't wait for that one.
And Star-Lord gets better by the minute.
I know.
It's like
no,
like
he's. It's just the whole thing, and seeing Rocket Raccoon riding on Groot, firing that gun on the big screen, man, I'm like, I think you could do that for 20 minutes of the movie, and I would not get bored. I love that image so much.
I think this thing is going to go really just crazy. I didn't think really much of it until we started talking about it. It was of mild interest.
Yeah, but now you know.
Honest, oh my God. And the funny thing was, if I was a superhero, I'm totally Star-Lord. That is me. I'm not Spider-Man.
No, I'm not Star-Lord.
I'm Star-Lord. It's like, I'm Star-Lord. Who are you? My name's Jack. Oh, okay.
I think I'm Star-Lord at best.
Right.
I don't even think I'm that. I'm more like Groot.
Groot.
Yeah, just a big dope.
Where are you going?
He's not a dope.
Are you going to the store? Groot. But man,
when I'm not podcasting, that is me.
Absolutely. But when all the Star-Lord stuff comes out, I'm going to buy it all. I'm going to wear the clothes, because that was like, dude, that is so me.
Yeah, it's great. Well,
I am Star-Lord.
Then let's talk about the one I was going to say. Did you see the Days of Future Past preview?
Yes. Oh, jeez.
They can't make enough of those kind of movies for me. I'm ready now. Like I watched that preview, and I swear, if it hadn't been Captain America, if that had been a preview and then it was just something else, I would have been thinking about X-Men the entire movie because I was so down with that preview.
Well, and
awesome.
The funny thing is, it seemed like you were calling out the fact that Magneto and Professor X were really, kind of going after Wolverine at the very end and saying, hey, we really need your help. And you were kind of calling them out on that. It's, how is this really working? And that is like the whole story is, these two guys, and they're at the end of their lives. They
have to correct a mistake. They have to send him back because their actions in the past have caused this mutant uprising and for Trask to wipe out the mutants.
Right. And,
it's made life absolute hell, and it's because of those two guys.
Right. And so not only do they have to correct it, but they have to work with each other. Things that really tore them apart in the first place are still there. And so, yeah, you've got this, not only do you have like the wonderful interplay of the characters and the X-Men and the, Wolverine, all these like disparate, but the story is just the story itself without any of the characters would be a great movie.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, man, I can't wait. All right, Jack, let's call it. We're going to wrap this up, and we will be back to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on episode 22. Are you good? Have you said everything you need to say for this episode?
I have said everything that I am going to say.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. You've heard the drill, blah, blah, blah. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on iTunes and Stitcher, blah, blah, blah. You've heard all this before. If you're not doing it, what's wrong with you? Also, you can go to our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. I guess we should say the Twitter. It's Nuff Said Pod, or you can follow me at rsouthgate or Jack at
Jack J. Wengroski.
Yeah, and we also have an Instagram. Please follow us, rate us, review us. There you go. I'm just so excited to get on to the next thing. This has been the Nuff Said Podcast. I am, now watch me try to say this word again, recapitulating Rob Southgate, and you are?
I was Jubilant Jack Wengroski.
Not so jubilant anymore, huh?
No, still there.
You're kind of juxtaposed to your jubilance.
That's right.
All right.
I would say the flair is starting to wear out, but still, I was very happy with the whole thing.
Oh, Jack, I think you're still flaring. All right, let's end it. Until next time, enough said.
Enough said.
If you would like to donate to help pay for this and other Southgate Media Group podcasts, simply go to our website, southgatemediagroup.com, and click on the donate button. It can be as little as $1 or, well, as much as you want. Help keep this fun going by supporting this and our other shows. Thanks again for listening, everyone. You're the best fans in the world.